Well, thank you, Mr. Parks and Mr. Reaves, for coming with us here today. We actually wanted to talk to you about how you guys both were part of the first original sit-ins in Chattanooga organized by Howard High School. So before we get into the juicy details, I was wondering if you could kind of talk to me about what were the injustices in Chattanooga at that time. You were earlier telling me about the segregation with the buses and the water fountains. Can you talk to me a bit about the climate of Chattanooga at that time?
Well, back in the 1960s, I really didn't pay that much to segregation because I stayed in a black neighborhood. When I dated, I went to a black community and went to a movie, black community. So it didn't really bother me that much, but you really saw these signs, fountain, white, colored, the bus when we rode the city buses. We knew where we had to go, not to the front. You just proceed on to the back. That was normal. So and then even going downtown, quite a few of our students rode the bus back then from out east to Howard High, because Howard was really the only black school here in the city. It used to go from 1st to the 12th. But although we spent money in those eateries downtown, but we could not sit down. We buy, stand it, and then you leave. And so therefore, we knew there were some injustices somewhere. Things were not right. So we really wanted to see a change. So all of a sudden, some of the students decide in a trigonometry class that we know these things are not right. So we decided just to have a sit-in demonstration, protest, march. And so many colleges was doing this, especially in Greensboro, North Carolina. So we decided we would just bring it right here in the city of Chattanooga. So on February the 19th, 1960, we decided to go downtown. And we didn't let the teachers know, and we didn't let our parents know, because there would have been a lot of repercussions. They would have really got us. But we went on downtown on Friday, February the 19th, and there were no Caucasian involved with the sit-ins. This was all color, what they called it back then. But then, on over in the following week, other students, outsiders come in, and that's when the little rumble started. But there was no whole lot of fighting, didn't do it. But the parents really got on, and some of our parents lost their jobs. A lot of the city officials, the leaders, did not want to get involved with that, but some of the parents lost their jobs. And even some of the students got arrested. But then, Mr. James Master, NAACP president, he came and got a lot of the students out. But that was just one of those things. We knew it wasn't right, and there were some changes need to be made. And so this reason brought about the protest and sit-ins. And we had rules that we had to go by. We already had this plan. There would be no weapons, no loud talking, no profanity, and leave a seat in between so someone else could sit and purchase something. But one of the things we wanted to do, we wanted to leave a seat there, and then we probably didn't have the money to purchase anything. But that was the rule, leave a seat there and be ready to buy. But overall, after this was all over, the city officials here in Chattanooga, well, really, this was the first class, and I think the city firemen ever had to use fire hose on students. The one right here in Chattanooga, downtown. But in the end, there were some changes made from this sit-in demonstration. February 1960 started it, and then in August of 1960, they had all the eateries downtown integrated because of the Howard class of 1960. But see, a lot of kids, they don't realize that right now. Mm-hmm. They think things have been like that all along, but it hasn't. And so what I would tell these students now, if they want to get out there and protest, do it in a peaceful way. First, you can tell them, put God in your life first. And then, after that, you do.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Reaves, do you want to add anything about maybe your experiences with the sit-ins?
Well, my experience, like, Robert was one of the organizers of the group. I mean, they started But we had been watching television, watching everything going on Reaves. And I don't know, I can't remember exactly how word got around to me that we were going downtown. But I was going, you know what I mean? There's no way I wasn't going that day. And the first day was really kind of peaceful. I can't remember, I was at Woolworth, I remember. And after a while, they closed down the counters. And it was not much going on that day. As a matter of fact, first couple of days, but then after that, things got a little squirrely. And so, because there was a high school right down the street, Kirkland High was down, about 3 blocks down the street. And when word got out about the Sit-Ins, some guys come up there and they were waiting on the students to get off the bus, waiting on us to get to town. And there was some altercations that day, and I remember. But like Robert said, in the end, everything worked out. And there was some times I can remember no white people joined us, but I can remember some people saying some things on the side that were encouraging. I mean, a lot of things weren't encouraging, but I remember some people saying, you know, good job, or I wonder why you waited so long to do this, you know. So, you know, it was good and bad, and I guess all worked out.
So something I kind of wonder is the first sit-in that each of you attended, the first time you went to the eatery and you sat down, what was the reactions of everyone around you, of the customers, of the workers? Did they look at you weird? Did they say something? Were they just like, did they not say anything? Like, what was their reaction when you just suddenly, out of the blue in February, and then for months just come in, sit down, just sit there? What was everyone like?
And it's caught all of them by surprise because, you know, they weren't expecting that. And they closed the counter down.
Yeah.
So this wasn't supposed to be happening from these high school students. but everything turned out good, though.
Which is like, well, he explained about it because the high school here, because there's no black college here in the city, you know what I mean? So it was left up on the, if anything could be done like it. Chattanooga is a place where, and I can, you know, agree with what he's saying. We didn't have that much overt, let me see how it, well, incidences that, you know, led up to that. But, you know, we knew what was going on around the rest of the country. Chattanooga is a place where you could really grow up and not really interact with that many white people until you get maybe an adulthood. I mean, there was everything. And maybe that was part of the city planners had that in mind, but there were places, we had places, if you wanted to go to the park, couldn't go to a water park, but Lincoln Park had probably the biggest pool in the city. You know, there's always somewhere to go. So I really grew up just like, you know, we were all in our culture was just, everybody was the same. As a matter of fact, we lived in the same neighborhood for a lot of part of our high school.
So it really led, because there were so many other sit-ins around the country, and you guys heard about that and saw, oh, this is also happening in my community, so I also need to take a stand. Well, that's really extraordinary. Thank you so much for telling your story. I also was wondering, what was, like, when you were deciding to take the stand against your teachers, your principal, your parents, kind of what was going through your mind? Like, what were you fearful of? Were you, I guess, excited, or were you hesitant, or were you just, nope, this is what I need to do, this is my role to play in this community?
Well, you know, back then, there was a little fear in you from the teachers and from your parents. And that's the reason we said, don't let the parents know. And some of the parents saw when it came out in the paper that they were involved. And we just went against their teaching, tell us not to do it. But we knew it was not right. And so we would have to make a change somewhere. Because if we have sat back and did nothing, we were saying, well, we'll just continue to be second-class citizens. And we didn't want that. We said we need to see a change. And like I said, integration, it didn't bother me. Of course, in our communities, we had stores, black-owned stores. So patronize those in your community, then the movies that you go to, black in the community. So it didn't bother me to go out and want to get integration until I got a little older. And now I appreciate things the way they happen. So someone else behind us reaping all these benefits now.
You can probably empathize with what's going on. I mean, it's now the way things are. It's the way they spread out in most cities. The incident happened in Minnesota about the murder. Well, you know, the policeman kneeling on the kid's neck. But it is spread. It's the same way it was with the Sit-Ins in, only it was just like most in the black community. But you know, not a lot happened, but you know what was happening around. You know, you read, you know, the lynchings in play, things that going on. So, you know, whenever there was no way you could not go try to do something if you get a chance, when you get a chance, you know.
Right.
And I think that's the way most of the kids are thinking now, you know. I mean, it's, you know, everybody's out, let's do something about this because this is enough.
So after a couple months of the sit-ins, when the eateries were integrated, when you heard that news, how did you and your classmates react? Was there like a huge moment either at school or at home where you said, my hard work paid off, we've made change?
Well, see, I left here in 1960. I left going in service. So when I came back, it has all changed. Be able to go downtown, sit down, didn't have to worry about anybody telling you could not sit here and we cannot serve you. But it was. It's a big difference, a big change.
There was a big change. There was a feeling of elation. You know, I mean, it's not like I was winning anybody, but when, you know, they tore out those. Okay, so Cress's was the 5 and dime down here, you know, closest to us. It had a counter, long counter over here, and then they had another counter, just about 3 stools for, you know, colored. So when they tore that thing out, they tore the stools out of that part of the counter. That was kind of like a celebratory moment, I guess you could say. But mostly it was just a feeling of feeling of elation, like that weight lifted off your shoulder.
Well, I genuinely really want to thank you both for all the work that you've put into changing this community. And I wanted to actually shift the conversation to what's happening in our country right now. So obviously with the tragic murders by the police in the past couple of months, we have seen a huge Black Lives Matter movement shake both this country and even internationally. So as 2 prominent members of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, what do you think of what's happening in the world right now with people standing up? And I mean, a lot of people even coined this the modern civil rights movement by some articles. What are your thoughts?
Well, I will support them 100%. You know, you just can't sit back, because if you don't do anything, nothing is going to happen. So somebody's going to get hurt, just like they did Jesus Christ. He had to pay the price. And the same thing, somebody's going to get hurt. But in the end, there's a good positive result we hope that comes out of it. So I support them, as long as there's not a whole lot of violence, because that's one of the things we said, no violence. But you might have that in your mind, not to have violence. There are others, outsiders, that come in and start. But go ahead on and support these protests. I support them peacefully now.
Yeah, I was flabbergasted, really, because I had just gotten into the civil rights movement. We all know that things are not the way they should be, and the outpouring in the cities and things, it really surprised me. I mean, I was happily surprised, you know, and I think it's really a great thing, a super thing that the country seemingly has just come to realize that, hey, this is just enough of this. And I mean, I've noticed some of the kids and stuff I work with have started going back and studying history and trying to find out why. You know, because a lot you don't know. You know, a lot of times you don't know what happened, and you know, that made things as they were. So it's really a great thing, great time, I think.
Right. No, I definitely agree. I know a lot of my friends have been re-looking at history and re-looking at how it's taught and what is either being kept out or what is being erased in our history books. So when we look at this movement right now and the movement in the 1960s, is there any big similarities or big differences that really stand out to you as someone who has experienced both? Anything?
Well, the biggest difference is that it's more inclusive now. At that time, it was only black students in there. Now there's, you know, it's all black, white, Asian. You know, I mean, everybody's the same thing, and I think that's much better anyway, because you know it shows that, hey, more and more people are thinking about things. You know, not just because it happened to a black person. You know, it's a person. And I think that's more the way people think is, you know, it's a person. You know what I mean? And so, let's stop this.
Right.
Because I didn't figure they will there's going to be some changes made when you get this many people really involved, and it has really been really supportive of the movement. Back then, it was just us, but now it's the whole group, all races.
Right.
And I support it.
So I know a lot of my friends are wanting to support this kind of movement. They are wanting to have their voice heard, speak up, be on the right side of history, but sometimes either they're scared to voice their opinions, that fear, or they think they're not doing something correctly, or maybe they're just, I mean, mostly it's just they're afraid. They're afraid to stand out, speak up. What kind of advice would you give to anyone who really wants to be a part of this movement and wants to make change, but maybe they're scared to, or they don't know how to?
Well, you just got to tell them, don't give up. I know there's going to be some fear in their thinking, but don't give up and just keep going. It's going to take a struggle. And all we want to do is see you stay with the end, and you'll see some good end results.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think being afraid and stuff, but I'm really amazed at the courage, I think, of the kids now, because I've seen like protesters in Polk County, man. I don't think there's even in black people live in Polk County. You know? Mm-hmm. I saw a couple of kids. We did a story on them, and they were doing the Black Lives Matter protest, you know. And I mean, really, you know, I feel for them. I don't even know them, you know, but the place that they're in is, you know, historically been a county where there's not that much good coming out of it for black people. So, you know, it was really surprising me. And I think I admire the courage of all the young people that are doing these things now. Really.
What we've learned from the best, from what we've learned about in our history books, so, and that's definitely thanks to both of you. And as we kind of close off, is there any last remarks you would like to say either to the viewers, to students, to activists, just to Chattanooga?
Well, I would tell them, if you want to see some changes made, you got to be involved, and there's going to be some fear, so it's no use me telling you now, but be some fear in there. But go ahead on and keep on marching and fighting for what you believe should be. Stay with the program.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't say it better than that.
Okay, well, if you guys don't have anything else to add, I want to thank you both for coming with us today and having this interview and sharing your story and, of course, changing Chattanooga for the better and standing up and during the 1960s. We really appreciate all the work that you've done.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.